And Ashton, you and I have made a big deal over several years now of doing this, of two kind of betting things. The season win totals, which we do every year, where we just basically take the over or under on every Power Five team and sometimes Group of Five teams as well, like their season win total. And then also the locks of the week, where we every week choose a choose a few, one to six or whatever. Just kind of sprinkle the board with some locks. And so we kind of want to just recap last year how things went for both of us. Um, I'll just run over the numbers and then we'll kind of recap it a little more. We'll get down into the weeds a little bit more. But on the season win totals, I had the best record of the two of us at 39-30. You were 35-34, just over 500. On the locks of the week, you were the one who clearly won that little challenge there. You were 18-11 in the locks of the week. I was 34-34. So overall, you were 53-45, which is 54.1%. I was 73-64, which is 53.3%. Yeah. Nothing spectacular, but no losing records to be seen here, Ashton. How do you feel about just overall how our season went?
Good. I mean, so definitely when you talk about it, locks of the week for me, I was really good last year. I felt kind of throughout that I had a really good handle on it, from like the week to week projections really. And I felt like I was really on it. I never really like locks of the week. I was confident. Kind of rolling into each week. Season win totals for me last year was a little bit of a struggle. Like just some teams that I was feeling good about going into the season, and they weren't what I thought. I've definitely been better in prior years. And I do think some of that for me was a little bit of the transfer portal stuff. I'm not going to throw NIL under the bus with that, but like with the portal stuff is maybe a little dynamic. I never really quite caught up with a little bit in the season win totals. I still had a winning record. Like I'm not complaining, but I had done really well in some of the season win totals previous years. Last year just I had a winning record, happy about it. I was not as good as you in the win totals for sure.
Yeah, it was weird how we both kind of had a certain thing that we were better at this last season. I don't know if that'll be a trend or if it's just kind of a one-off. If we look down through those win totals that you were talking about, the main conference that got us both was the SEC. We both had a losing record with SEC teams, and it wasn't all that close. You were 5-9, I was 6-8, both pretty bad. What are the ones that you feel the worst about? Like, man, why did I not see that coming? And conversely, what are the ones you're like, man, you know what? I probably would make that bet again, even though it ended up being wrong.
Okay, so the Missouri at 6.5. We both had the under on
Yeah.
Missouri. That was just a terrible bet. Like we just got that one wrong. Like we weren't
Yes.
even close. So Missouri turned out to be much better than that. They beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, New Year's Six Bowl, one of the best seasons of all time for the Missouri Tigers. We just couldn't have been more wrong. I think I understand what we thought a little bit. We definitely had Missouri down the pecking order behind teams like Georgia and Tennessee. They're in the East. We had them behind teams like Kentucky in the East. And I thought Florida was going to have a nice season. And you did as well. So like we had Missouri down the pecking order, and in the old SEC, funny saying that now, in the old SEC, when you're in the East, you have divisions, you kind of like they're going to lose that game. So in Missouri, they went on, they beat Tennessee head to head. I mean, they beat Florida head to head. They had some huge wins. They played Georgia tight. We just got that one wrong. That one wasn't close. The one that I'm proud of, I think, was the Tennessee under. I did take the Tennessee under. They had it at 9.5. I felt there was going to be a drop off once Hendon Hooker left and going to Bazooka Joe Milton. The offense they were not close to what they were in the previous year. The receivers left and that hit them hard. So that was maybe a bet that I was proud of in the SEC. But yeah, overall, it wasn't nothing to write home about for us in that league at all. And by the way, the SEC it's a difficult league too.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
It's so unpredictable. Like you can look at some of these other leagues that we're going to go through, and we did really well, like breaking even or better. And the SEC, it completely cleaned us out. So many of these games are coin flip type games, And if you get in trouble here, like I had Georgia at 11.5. They had just went undefeated the previous year. I took Georgia under. I thought, well, they're going to lose one game, because they didn't lose any games at all the prior year, and they didn't. Georgia goes undefeated in the regular season, and I lose. So there's a lot of that. Did you feel any of the teams in the SEC that you really had a beat on and like you're proud of, like you really made a statement there?
Well, I was kind of proud of the Georgia. I took the 11.5. I took the over on the 11.5, which I kind of admitted at the time was probably dumb, but I just felt like Georgia wasn't going to lose the regular season game, and they didn't. I also thought they were going to win the national title, so don't give me too much credit on that, I guess.
Right.
I don't know that I would say I had much of a beat on any of these teams. Some of the ones I was looking back over it, I was like, man, I really got that wrong in the SEC. I was over 7.5 for A&M and under 7.5 for Ole Miss. Those were like horrible. You already mentioned Missouri under 6.5. The SEC just kicked our butts last year. Looking over the rest of the country, what what stands out to you either positively or negatively from your picks?
So when I started going through these in preparation for this episode, the first thing you want to do when you look at each conference is, well, like where did I go with the champ, like the playoff teams? How did I do with the playoff teams?
Mm-hmm.
In particular, like the Power Five champs. So you look at a team like Washington, for example. Washington's preseason win total was either 9 or 9.5. We both had the under on that. Of course, Washington goes a perfect undefeated and wins a playoff game, and is one of the best teams in the country. Couldn't have been more wrong there. Looking at the Big Ten, Michigan, their win total was at 10.5. And we both felt really, really good about the over because Michigan did not have a hard conference. They didn't. All they had to do was pick off either Ohio State or Penn State. And we felt like that would kind of be a cakewalk for them. And so we both took the over, and they like easily cashed, right? Like a lot of confidence there. So looking at teams like that's easy. We both also had the Texas over for what it's worth. The Texas over was 9.5. Those are the playoff teams. And we got a lot of those right. Like Texas easily went over the 9.5. And like you feel really good. Like you feel confident about that. But then seeing the Washington one will, just bring you back down to reality a little bit.
We also both took over 9.5 for USC. So it seems like a lot of our picks ended up being the same. Maybe because we talk constantly throughout the year, we feed off each other in some ways. And it's not like we always agree on everything, but it did seem like there were some trends definitely about some of the teams that we were really confident in, like Michigan. Like that was one of our, if I recall, that was about the easiest choice that both of us made. The 10.5 number just didn't feel right with either one of us, and we hammered that one. A couple others that stood out to me. You mentioned Texas already. That was one a lot of people their heads were telling them you should do that, but their hearts were like Texas never wins double digits, and we just both kind of dove in and took it. We actually, was it both of us? I took Utah under 8.5. You did as well, and that felt like just so crazy, but it worked out for us. We both
the schedule was tough there. We talked about
insane.
that in the preseason, that Utah had a really, really difficult schedule, and it felt almost blasphemous at 8.5 taking a Utah under, especially how good they were the prior 2 years. We did not know, though, to be fair, we didn't know that Cam Rising was not going to play at all. We thought he might miss a few games. We thought he might miss the Florida game early on. They end up winning that game, and it doesn't even matter. Like Rising doesn't come back, and Utah struggles. Utah was a solid football team last year. But the schedule was brutal for those guys. One that I wanted to point out was TCU. We both had the over on TCU. The TCU win total was 7.5. Coming off a national championship, we took the over at 7.5. That felt like Vegas bait a little bit. Like they were throwing that one out there, and they got us. They got us on that one because like TCU just went to a title game. We saw them win a playoff game. Like they beat Michigan. That TCU team beat Michigan the year before. Of course, we're going to be all in on the Horned Frogs. They come out, they lose to Colorado, and the season kind of spiraled out for them a little bit after that. So we had some impressive wins. We had some bad ones. You feel the bad ones more You definitely feel the bad ones more. One last one I want to hit on was the Northwestern win
Yes.
total. It was 2.5 or 3. You could get it at either number. We were out on Northwestern because they had the scandal, right?
Hmm.
Northwestern was a bad football team, and then they had this scandal. Pat Fitzgerald is no longer the coach there. We were actively betting weekly, by the way. The first couple of weeks, we were betting against Northwestern, whatever the number. We were just laying the points with the favorite there. And we were winning bets, by the way, because Northwestern was trash. Northwestern turned it around. They went to a bowl game. They won 7 regular season games comfortably, hit the over. Like we were completely wrong. Like that, I don't know if that's a bet that I would say I would make again because it felt right. Like Pat Fitzgerald was the best coach that we had seen for Northwestern. We didn't know that that was going to be a galvanizing, a rallying of the troops moment.
Hmm.
And it became one for Northwestern. So, hey, good for them, good for the coach. But yeah, that one there is like we were off by a really long ways.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that one as well. We were talking about maybe one game. Like they might win one game. They might not win a game.
Yeah, right.
And they, to their credit, David Braun did an incredible job. They made us look silly with that one. I didn't add them all up. That might have been the one we missed on the most, like by the
Five
most
games.
games. Like it wasn't
Five
even
games.
close.
Yeah. Right.
Um, one more that we can actually let's end on a good note on the win totals. Neither one of us fell for the Texas Tech hype last offseason. And we
Correct.
both took the under on their line of 7.5, and that hit. Um, I think we maybe both felt even at the time that maybe the hype was a year early. So maybe they will actually be better this year. I don't know.
Right.
Like that's something I'm looking for as I'm digging into these teams going forward, and as we go to the 2024 win totals. I'll be very interested in that one. But yeah, I was slightly proud of us for not falling for the hype and actually getting that one correct. Um, yeah.
What was your bet that like you're most proud of? Was it the Utah bet? Because we were kind of bucking against the trend there for sure. Um, with a lot of Utah juice there going, like because they were really consistent, right? And sometimes you do have to take these things apart. It's not really it's not real. You don't have a real projection until you go game by game, through their whole schedule and mark down the wins and losses for each team. And in doing that, we kind of found maybe a little bit of a gap there that Utah is like, this is a brutal stretch, for them.
Mhm.
Did you have others? Um, can we talk about the Iowa over? Like, can we hit on that a little bit?
Yes.
I'm proud of it. We both went over on Iowa at 8.5. It was a big number. We didn't like the offense. We weren't fans of the offense. Neither one of us coming into we didn't think that Cade McNamara was going to be the answer for Iowa. We had there was no disillusionment there at all. We felt really, really confident in the defense and in
Mhm.
I guess, their ability to just kind of boa constrictor a game. And we also really like their schedule. So they get some turnover luck. They've got a really opportunistic defense and special teams, and they hit their over. They win 10 games. They go comfortably over. So I'm proud of us for that one there. We both were on that.
I don't know if I have an individual one that I'm the most proud of, but probably the Big Ten in general. We mentioned Northwestern, very wrong on that one, but I went 11-3 in the Big Ten. Maybe it's just because that's where I grew up and maybe a little more familiar with some of those programs. But also, it could just be dumb luck this year. Next year, I could go 3-11, or no, I can't go 3-11 in the Big Ten next year because there's 4 more teams in the Big Ten and everything is changing. But anyway, be that as it may, a couple other notable things. If we talk about like some of I don't want to talk about a lot of the individual locks of the week. That could get a little bit mundane, maybe. But the one, and by the way, like I was well under 500. I had to just scratch and claw just to reach to 500. You were the one that was well over 500 all season. Um, you could you could say that the main reason I even got to 500 is because of Iowa unders. We both took the over on their win total, and I was riding their unders all season long. Didn't win every
Yeah.
single one, but won quite a few. So just tip my cap to them for threading that needle where they were not scoring points at all, and yet somehow we're winning games. So I guess props to them. And thank you to the Iowa football program for getting me to 500 on the season.
Any bad beats that you want to talk about, whether it's a game by game basis or like a season win total. I'll start. The Florida win total. Florida
Mm,
their preseason win total was 5.5. We both took the over, and through 7 weeks they were 5-2. They were
yeah.
5-2 heading into Georgia, Florida. The cocktail party, and you felt really good. Like, yeah, they're going to get one of these last, well, yeah, 6 games. Well, yeah, 7 games, and no, six. Sorry, and they get blanked. That was tough. Like that one I felt really good about. We were kind of almost sipping champagne early on about how good we were there in October, and they come off the bye week and kind of fall apart there. So that one, I would probably bet that one again. I really would. I think Florida was a better football team than they led on last year. Maybe it's because I watched them in person, play their only impressive game against Tennessee when they won that game. But yeah, that was a bad beat. I feel like I would probably make that bet again.
I don't know that I have any that I can really point out. I recognize very much that a lot of the times I notice the bad beats and then I gloss over the ones where they work in my favor. And I know that happens sometimes too. Um, yeah, especially when you're looking at some of the season win totals. You could make an argument for like Colorado. We both took under 3.5 and they go half a game over. And it just felt like that opening game against TCU was just bananas. Like maybe in retrospect they shouldn't have won that. Maybe they should have gone 3-9. But also I think they probably were a little bit better than I expected them to be going into the season. So I probably deserve to lose that one.
Can we just hit on the USC point a little bit more? You kind of brushed through it a little bit. USC's win total, like, not only were we wrong, like everyone was wrong. Like, they had a
Yeah.
returning Heisman quarterback and a quarterback whisperer as a head coach, and they felt like they were really improving on defense. Like, they were finally getting some players, and they had some nice skill pieces. We both took the over on USC, and I don't really maybe even want to talk about the betting part of it as much as just the disappointment part.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was really really disappointing from USC. I don't think I quite realized it until I sat back and looked at the number at 9.5 and 10. They were the favorite to win the Pac-12
Mm-hmm.
going into the season. They were the favorite. They had an excellent quarterback, obviously, and just, yeah, disaster there really for USC. They kind of get pushed around again, and has led to a lot of changes in that program. So, any thoughts there? Like, as a noter, yeah, you're enjoying this, right? Sure, this doesn't hurt your feelings at all to see them struggle. What what do you even make of that? Because Lincoln Riley, like, with where he was just 3-4 years ago to where the narrative is now, is drastically different. Like, he's bordering on, if he's not careful, especially in the new look Big Ten, he's bordering on irrelevance very quickly.
Yes, I did enjoy last season. I'm not going to lie about that one. I will say there's a real chance this turns into 2016 Notre Dame. Like maybe 2023
Yeah.
USC is what I don't know if you remember. Notre Dame went 4-8 in 2016, and after that year, like they changed everything. They basically gutted it down to the studs, and they just redid the way they did everything. And some of the things you hear about USC this offseason sort of make you think they're doing the same thing. Um, Different aspects, but they finally changed the defensive coordinator, and we've been talking about that for years. I mean, about as long as we've had a podcast. And they
Long
went and
time.
got D'Anton Lynn away from UCLA, their crosstown rival.
Right.
And maybe even more important than that, you've heard some talk about changing the way they do practice, changing the way they they don't want to be finesse anymore, and they've been finesse for a long time. Maybe they want to be a little more physical. I don't think the personnel is great on defense, but if they have a good defensive coordinator and are actually somewhat like average physically, like that could turn into several more wins a season, and then who knows what can happen with the recruiting from that, and maybe then they do have the personnel in a few years to where they could have a top 10 type of defense. So like that's a long way of saying, yeah, it's as a Notre Dame fan, it's been kind of fun to see them struggle through that. I also think there's a chance for USC fans out there, like you might look back on that and say that's the best thing that ever happened to Lincoln Riley.
How hard is it to gain physicality like as a mindset? You
Hmm.
know, like that's something I thought a lot about with like even you talk about like Alabama. Alabama had very much transitioned away from that like super physical defense first mindset that made them great. And they became, you know, like the Tua teams, the Mac Jones teams, where they're just throwing the ball all over the field. Certainly with Bryce Young, they were like that, right? Like very quarterback dependent and quarterback led. And Lincoln Riley has made his money as a quarterback led team. Like that's what his teams have been. They're going into the Big Ten. How, like, I just wonder, and we don't really know, I guess they're kind of a case study, but how easy will it be for them to go up against teams like, you know, we talk about Iowa, but even like, you know, teams like Wisconsin, like teams that are kind of on their playing field, but are going to be much better than them in the trenches. Like they're just going to
Mm-hmm.
be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a 1 year fix. Like, I think it probably takes a few years for that to actually totally turn around where everyone's in the physical mindset and actually playing that way. And it's also a recruiting thing too, like recruiting guys that want to just be a little bit crazy and go out there and just knock heads together. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot already this offseason. I'm sure there's more to come. It feels like Oregon's going to be a very seamless fit into the Big Ten, and USC is kind of the opposite of that. Maybe they're they're like the way more talented version of Purdue, which is fine. Like you can win a lot of games in the Big Ten that way, but you're probably not going
Right.
to win a title until you also figure out how to play some defense alongside that. I'm just saying, like, okay, I've been thinking a lot the last few weeks about our summer coaching draft that we do every year. Where
Yes. Yeah.
we
It's going to be epic
basically
this year.
yeah, we basically play like school president and or whatever, and we're like hiring a coach. We draft coaches. We're losing a lot of coaches that are usually at the top of that list this
It's
season.
true. It's true.
Obviously Nick Saban, Jim Harbaugh, and others. Where is Lincoln Riley going to go this year? Because it you kind of have to do some projection for where like is this stuff going to work? You also you kind of have to dock him a little bit for the way the last year went. Like it's just going to be really interesting to see where he ends up, and I'm still not sure where he goes into my mental list.
The coaches draft this year is going to be completely up for grabs.
Yeah,
After Kirby at one, which like there's a clear number one, which we haven't always had. The clear
right.
number one, and after that, it's completely up for grabs. Like you could talk me into Ryan Day, you could talk me into. I mean, shoot, if you want to talk about titles, you could talk me into guys like Dabo. If you're
Hmm.
gonna say something like that. There's a lot of guys that have a ton of potential. I don't know where you go with like Kalen DeBoer, even someone like that. So yeah, the coaches draft this year is going to be by far the most entertaining and almost frightening bit of podcasting that we have done so far. Because there's some of us that could look really really bad here in a few years if we go and make some mistakes. Because there's a lot
Yeah,
of unknowns.
yeah. Every pick from 2 through 5 will be like, I want to take this guy about 4 picks later, but
Yeah,
here we go.
right.
Um, all right. Well, back to the betting aspect. Is there anything else that you noticed or you wanted to talk about before we kind of wrapped up the betting recap area here?
Kind of just overall, I did want to hit on the numbers just a little bit more. You finish at 53.3%. I finish at 54.1. Winning records, not
Mhm.
fantastic, but winning records. And these are not just small sample sizes. Now, this is we've done this for a while now, where we've continued to eke out some victories. So yeah, I guess proud of us. I'll just say that, proud of us. You see some of the guys on like College Game Day or what, like whatever pregame show you watch, just be absolutely abysmal at
Mhm.
picking games. Yeah, it's hard to put out winners ahead of time the way we do it, and I think we do a pretty good job. I was expecting more from us in the win totals.
Sure.
I expected to be better. A little disappointed maybe with how some of the things turned out. But I've already been looking at some win totals for next year. I'll be really honest with you. I've been looking at some win totals for next year. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Yeah, I think we did a good job, an admirable job. Room to grow though. Room to grow for us for next year.